Like the penguin in Happy Feet, the movie says, let me tell something to you.
My name is Dean Haystack, the Dean, and you're listening to The Coffee Conversation.
The conspiracy theory conspiracy. In order to have a theory, you first need a fact. Like the dinosaur first discovered in the ground, that was a fact. From there they formulate a theory. What is the dinosaur in the ground concerning the COVID-19 event? Citizens around the world are losing our freedoms, our ability to make decisions and choices for ourselves, and governments are getting more and more power and control over individuals around the world. That is a categorical fact. The question is that incidental or is that deliberately orchestrated? There's two things that make up this event primarily. People around the world are dying. And the measures that are being put into place are destroying people's lives, they are destroying people's livelihoods, and it's even killing people. Those are the two things that make up the COVID-19 event. There's four responses to the COVID-19 event as I've described it. The first response of those who are still working, still being paid, like presenters on radio and TV, like politicians, like government officials, like people who have to stay in their business to continue to provide the essential basic services. Those people are more scared of what might be killing people than they are of the social economic environment, because they're not suffering it. The second social economic environment are those of us who are fully exposed to the dangers of what's killing people, as well as fully exposed to the dangers of the measures that have been put in place to stop the people from dying. It's destroying our lives, it's destroying our livelihoods, and we know people who are dying not from the coronavirus but because of stress-related diseases, suicide, not going to hospital and getting treatment. We understand that the measures that are put in place to prevent people from dying is more dangerous. The cure is more dangerous than the disease. The third environment are those, and it's quite ironic, is those that are being paid yet they don't have to work. And the reality is that many of those people enjoy the release of the lockdown restrictions. They don't stay at home like they're telling everybody to do. They go out and they expose themselves. They don't truly believe that the virus is that dangerous because it's not manifesting to be. The fourth response in the socio-economical is those who were unemployed and those who live in such horrible conditions that the last thing they're scared of is of the virus or the social economic collapsing, because they got no money anyway. I mean, where they live, they've got to walk down the street and hope that they survive. And they're actually leveraging the situation to try and get more money from the government. But more and more people are falling into that environment, becoming dependent on the government, which might be, in the minds of us, what the government wants to achieve. Because if we need them, they can be God over us. Those are the four responses. The only one qualified to actually have a viewpoint entirely are the people who are exposed to both the threat of whatever is killing people, as well as the threat of the measures that are being taken. And those of us who are exposed to that are the ones who are saying there's something wrong, there is something amiss. In 2018, 2019, the Johns Hopkins University did an exercise called Event 201, where they analyzed what would happen and what the response should be if a pandemic went around the world. And ironically, they did use the corona strain of virus as the example, and now it's manifest a year later. In Wuhan, China is where it apparently broke out, and from Wuhan, China, it spread to the rest of the world, yet it didn't go through the rest of China. Lockdown was supposed to be to increase medical services capacity for a period of weeks in order to get it ready, but we haven't come out of lockdown since, and the hospitals aren't ready. There was a report in November that the hospitals in the Eastern Cape were overrun with patients, but then the presenter, knowingly or unwittingly, I don't know, said the hospital only has 8 beds and they've got 20 patients. And I'm not saying people aren't dying, but this is the medical services aren't ready 10 months later. They shut down the beaches, which made no scientific sense. They didn't have to shut them down. All they needed to do was limit access. And they did this between the 16th of December and the 2nd of January in the high season when most people in the garden route make their living. The disaster management team in the garden route did not ask for the disaster management team nationally to close the beaches. They asked them to accept their management plan, which would have limited access. The management team of the nationally ignored the request and shut it down. Why? Are they stupid, or are they ignorant, or are they willingly ignorant? Either this is ignorance, in which case it is a crime against humanity because of the damage that it's causing, or it's willing ignorance, in which case it is actually a conspiracy. Now, which one of those it is or isn't, I don't actually know, but we'll all find out soon. We were told it was going to be 10 times more people, but it's only manifest to be 3 times more people factually. And let me give you the facts. In South Africa in 2019, 11,000 people examined with the naked eye weren't looking for deaths related to flu. 11,000 people died with complications from the flu. In 2020, that number is sitting at 33,000, but those deaths were examined under a microscope. We look for every single death that would be related to the COVID-19 virus potentially, and we gave it the stamp of it. Now, they might all have been COVID-19 deaths. I have no problem with that. But how many flu deaths did we miss the year before? That's the same as the figure in Sweden, comparatively, who had no lockdown. They had just over 3,000 deaths in 2019, and they had just under 10,000 deaths in 2020. No lockdown. The international figure is exactly the same. Internationally, in 2019, 650,000 deaths were recorded in relation to the flu, aggravated by the flu, and in 2020, that number was sitting on 2 million. That is 3 times exactly. It is not nearly as dangerous as the 10 times that they did prescribe when they launched the fear campaign. Whether it was deliberately a fear campaign or not deliberately a fear campaign is whether you believe or not, whether it's incidental or it's a conspiracy. But the fact of the matter is that it's been a fear campaign. There's a divide and conquer that is manifesting, whether it's deliberate or whether it's incidental, we don't know. But to just discount every single thing that speaks against the status quo is folly. Nobody's allowed to even say anything. I might get into trouble for this video. There was a guy in March last year, as the virus broke out and we started going into restrictions, they started sending tests from whichever lab. That same lab had been found that some of the tests were factually contaminated with the virus, by accident or not, we don't know. But he said, before you take the test, do not take the test before the health department has confirmed that the tests are not contaminated. He got arrested for that and got thrown into jail. I don't know if he stayed in jail. We haven't heard anything since. But they're hiding anybody who speaks against what the authorities have to say. And we can't just accept that we can trust the authorities blindly because they don't have the best track record. Now, maybe we can trust them, but we have to discover that for ourselves. And that's why I'm saying that this might be a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy, because you can't have a theory without facts to go by. My name is Dean Haystack, and I'm just a guy who gives a damn. Remind everybody to like or subscribe or hit the little bell thingy. Don't know what the little bell thingy is, but hit the little bell thingy. That's apparently the YouTube thing to do.